okay, this wasn't the ending I had in mind.
This is the house that my mother built.
This time last summer, Dad sent me to the south of France.
Taxi dropped me off Boulevard Victor Hugo.
That bloody scarf!
Mum used to work for one of them Ponzi magazines.
I was sort of keen on going down to the gym after school.
When I was 7, my mother took me on an airplane for the first
That
time.
the second you do something wrong, you feel guilty. I don't. What I'm feeling is power. You always join the story at the bit when they're desperately begging for forgiveness. But there's something before that. There's now. In the space after the accident, before the consequences, when you've got away with it, when you're walking out of an unknown door, back down an unknown street, and it's still thumping in you. Dawn's breaking, dew settling, and you're skipping back home, flying on the thrill of it. You can taste it. Even back here, the quiet click of the door, the tiptoe in. The alcohol's wearing off too quickly. I want it back, our bed and all the stuff that makes up life. Our life, and I don't feel like a traitor. I can lie here while another man's saliva dries off my lips and I can remember another man's face, and I enjoy it. I enjoy that all this seems new again.
I'm walking in the middle of the night by a cold shadow passing over me, guiding me like the highest priestess through a labyrinth of stars. I spent hours marching through a familiar pattern that my feet picked up like clockwork, turning steps into rhythm, darkness into neutrality, labyrinth into palace. I'm safe, secure, I'm comforted.
I'm not quite sure what I had in mind, but probably a faint whisper of a happy ever after. You know, wearing matching cardigans and sharing digestives. But I hadn't thought I'd been stupid enough to pin anything on it actually happening. It's easy for the Cinderellas and Sleeping Beauties of this world, but we're a little low on route planners for Prince Charming and Prince Charming. Serious lack of fairy tales. This certainly isn't one, is it? I think we can all agree that finding your boyfriend hanging by the rafters by a Hermes scarf, well, it's not exactly happy ever after, is it?
This is the house that lets the outside in and keeps the inside out. There are no rules in this house, no don't or can't, no time to get up, no time to be home, just in and out, always in and out, and everything always open. This is because when I was 6, Mum discovered what Dad had really done, what closed doors were really for. She called a builder man and told him to take away all of the doors, every last one.
The day I left, he stood on the front step and saluted my departure, like some bloody sergeant major. Pair of baggy corduroys, copy of The Guardian wedged under his arm. Off you go, my son, he yelled. You will walk away a boy and return a man.
His alarm goes off in 10 minutes. He'll roll over and grunt, curl himself around me like a little monkey with his bloody mum. Just like every morning, he won't notice that anything's different. No, he won't see that I have mascara to help my face or that my hair is wet because I've been running in the rain to get back before he wakes up. No, he won't notice that I haven't been here, that I'm drunk. No, for him, I became invisible a long time ago.
Now my dad would have been in his element. I can still hear his voice in my head saying, "Do you know, Jude, that without Victor Hugo, I strongly doubt we would have ever had Dickens." Really, Dad, that's fascinating.
23, 24, it was huge. Raw iron gates squeaked open. I carried my suitcase up to this big green door. The paint was cracking off it in the heat. There were old-fashioned shutters and yellow walls. It looked like all the Riviera photos Dad had shown me before I left. All those stories about
Fitzgerald, Picasso, and Hemingway. When genius was valued, Jude, and the women. Oh, the women. Beautiful muses with wild eyes and all. What did he say?
Oh yeah, records abandoned, as if he was 100 years old and he'd been there himself. Sad act.
I always maintained that high price means high quality. But who knew Hermes could take a man's weight? And let's be clear, he wasn't some skinny little man. He was a big fat chunky. I don't know what I was playing at giving it to him. He wasn't the scarf type you see, Hermes or otherwise. Never has been. When I was a teenager, I tried my very hardest to like Cyndi Lauper. Him, no. Going out with a butterfly for a zip was his idea of outrageous. Where's that sodding ambulance? He can't just be up there, like that. I guess the rush isn't on once they realise the resuscitation heroics are out. More or less a removal job now. Lads, mind your backs. His big purple face is dribbling all over an M in print. Why he chose the bloody stockroom? It's not like he was being shy, putting a Hermes noose around his neck. And it's not quite the same as popping a few pills and drifting off, is it? You might as well have done it in front of the frickin' window. Nice piece of performance art. No, he wanted to save this one just for me. One man show. I bet I'm not insured for suicidal dribble either. That's 5k down the drain.
That's why we moved up north to Preston. It's the newest city in England, you know. I was well excited. Shouldn't have been. Boring as hell here. Mum's job was to make sure all the people on the front cover of the magazine looked right. I used to watch her, it was like magic. She'd give them big old smiles and scrape up all their fat. Anything not perfect, she'd just rub out, make it disappear. And when she was done, all them people looked beautiful, like dolls. The only problem was that they you sort of sad to look at all the ugly people after that. All them people that were fat or spotty or just sort of strange, when Mum made it seem real easy to look right. At Hudson Grammar, I was never bright, so sports were always my thing, and I was always big, like Dad had been. He died in the Falklands. He was a sapper, part of the Royal Engineers, and a bit more up top than I did. Mum always seemed a bit afraid after Dad had gone. She seemed sort of smaller. I guess that's why I wanted to get big, like Dad had been, to make things right, protect her like.
It helped me with rugby and girls and that. So Mum, for my 18th birthday, she bought me my first ever protein shakes. It was the C&P professionals. At first it was just a hobby, I do say. 2 hours after school, not much like prep till 12, so squats, crunches, lunges, just the usual stuff. But it started feeling really good and I was feeling better and I was looking better.
I don't remember where we were going, only that the collective sound of what felt like 1,000 locusts descending around me gave me my very first panic attack. My mother, noticing this, took my hand in hers and told me to name 3 things that I could hear underneath the chorus of insects. I tell her I hear the stuttering of the jets at the back of the plane, turning on and off again in preparation for flight. I hear the pilot's muffled laughter wafting its way back through the aisles as the door slams shut. I hear the woman 3 seats back as she tells the stewardess that a gin and tonic should be made with a ratio of 60-40, not 70-30, and did she need to come back there and show her how it's done? When I finished, my mother smiled at me. One of those rare smiles that reminds me of an impressionistic painting. So precise, so well thought out, that I had no choice but to believe her. She tells me, whenever you feel the panic coming on, you say or describe the first 3 things that you hear, see or feel to bring you back down again. This became my routine, my salvation.
There's safety and consistency, she said. So that's what I did. I built a routine into my anxiety. When I would wait for what feels like hours in hospital, I could feel a sudden tide change threatening to capsize my vessels, and I would whisper about how the parents smell like steel coffee. When my boyfriend told me he did not love me anymore, I could feel the waves lapping at my ankles, and I noticed his hands did not shake.
When my father screamed at me that I was not trying hard enough, I stood in the mirror for an hour and described every bruise that danced its way across my skin, shades of cerulean and magenta interspaced with gaping black phantoms.
The house became a big toothless mouth with gaping gaps where all the doors had been. Soon my mother found strangers to fill up all those gummy gaps. She'd fill the house right up with people like grains of multicolored sand. In they'd pour and out they'd run, rivers of funny-looking faces in multicolored clothing. Mother has 100 gods: money, sex, beauty. She makes idols of them all. She has the strongest, wildest love, like nothing will ever matter again. She's the spoiled kind, the hair, the nails, the man. She takes what she wants. She is what you call young.
Can't remember which one came first. It sort of seemed like the same thing after a while. So I upped my hours. And yeah, there was pain, but I could ignore it. I was focused like crazy. And soon, I could feel it. Sitting at the back of the classroom, my traps were straining to get out of my school shirt. And the girls could see it too. They could see that I was different. They could see the strength, the fearlessness. I didn't need to be a hero. It was enough just to look like one. But after a while, people stopped looking.
And it didn't feel so good. It didn't feel right. The change wasn't as powerful as it was at the start. So I started asking myself the same questions, like, why didn't I have a girlfriend? And what was I going to do with my life? And what would my mum do if I went? And it was like at the gym, I felt so perfect. I felt unstoppable, but suddenly, nothing was perfect anymore. My dad always said, the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in war. So I signed up. 4th Battalion, Duke at Lancaster's regiment training every Tuesday down at the Kimberley Barracks. We were the new boys. They called us slanks in the 4th Battalion, the babies, hauled in one day, pretty much shipped out the next. Well, that's what all the lads said. It was direct service to Barisha, unsure whether we had a single or a return. We didn't have a clue what we were doing, but I wasn't bothered. I was there to fight. End of. I was pretty popular too. Apparently, it's quite comforting to have your arse covered by a lad built like a brick house.
But halfway through the tour, the day came. The older squaddies had always said it. One thing will happen one day, and you'll never be the same. Mine came 24th of June 2007. It was my 22nd birthday. We were creeping through some sleepy suburb. The warrior tanks were following us up. Tension was high, the drivers were spiked, chewing coffee granules as they were black. But all was quiet. Who just having a nose about? I'm out front. Suddenly, in a bowls of Yank Hummer, they all come charging through, shouting, "Get some!" Pelting out bullets like it's a fairground ride. My lot hit the deck thinking Johnny G had's out to play.
I'm squatting low behind some rubble waiting for the storm to pass. When boom! There's smoke. I can hear screams but muffled, there's this pain in my left leg. I look down and the whole of my leg, hip to toe, skinless. It was like the bullets had stopped, like there was silence. I stared and my leg was red and bloody, not a patch of skin on the thing. I touched it. It was soft and warm and huge, and it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Then suddenly, the pain and the smell, the stinking of burning flesh, I screamed! There was no way I was seeing service after that. Burns all over my leg. They took the skin from my arse and patched it together. Just scraped bits off and had bits on.
It fascinated me. And as it healed, I missed it. It was like seeing that. Seeing how perfectly constructed I was beneath it all. I guess it was Dad's influence, the engineer in me. But I swear, I'd never seen anything work so well. It was like suddenly, all of Mum's pictures, all those perfect men and women, they were nothing. The buzzes underneath the skin, that's where everything was right.
What it is that when someone is willing to sit with you, all exposed and running where they are, it makes you want to share. It makes you tell them things you can never tell anyone else, and they don't care if people like you or if you're big or strong. They'll listen anyways, and you listen right back. Listen. Listen to that silence beneath all of the noise. And listen quiet now. It's almost as if their hearts start to beat.
3 months here might not be so bad. There was sun, there was sea, and there was bound to be women in bikinis. I was an independent man, my own room. I could be a Riviera gent, look sharp, become fluent in the language of love. Eat well, get to know the place, maybe make friends with a baker. Bonjour, Jude.
Bonjour, Pierre.
Say, Jude, where's the young lady I saw you
Hey,
there?
Pierre, she needs some rest from all the loving, huh? Come on, what's that smell? It's like peppers or something. God, this could actually be bloody brilliant. God, it's hot. I need to get out of this stuff. I'm sweating. Come on, cushion and cologne. I'm definitely the kind of man that likes cologne. The table's full of wine and strangers, funny sounding French and hands grabbing at massive bowls of salami and anchovies. Little balls of mozzarella and fat balls of tomatoes, all swimming in oil that smelled of olive and basils. I took one olive, just the one. Clara looked down at me from the head of the table. C'est tout, Jude? The two lads sitting opposite me laughed. Jimmy, on the left, a painfully stupid American who was excited about everything always and couldn't speak a word of French, made me look pretty good actually. And then Fabian on the right, the quadrilingual Bavarian man-beast who kept having to pop off to play contact sports. It was a circus of freaks, controlled by the heavenly hostess, the red-lit ringmaster. Not a piece of food past her lips, she just sipped on red wine, smiling as we gorged ourselves.
For the next 3 months, between language school in the morning and getting drunk in the evenings with Dipstick and Goliath, I spent my days sneaking glimpses of Clara, her gold St. Christopher twinkling in the morning sun at breakfast, wrinkled fingers gracefully tying expensive French lace. Perfection did exist. Dad had been right to have his idols. Clara Moretti, my Madonna. Dad, in his absence, had finally come into his own. I had all this inside me. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't concentrate. There weren't enough hours in the day. The only thing that made it any better was that little library Dad had packed me. I devoured every book, cover to cover. She became my aged Lady Chatterley, my jaded Juliet, my latter-day Anna Karina. But I was just Quasimodo, looking longingly from afar and catching glimpses of her perfection whilst I remained this skinny, pasty, and increasingly terrified teenager. It killed me. The more time I spent with her, the worse it was. I read books to her. I helped her cook, I watched her paint, and all while she looked at me with sad and sympathetic eyes.
She wore age differently with me, like it was heavy to carry, as if it was an old friend that wouldn't let her forget a thing, not for a second. In the evenings, Mediterranean men would arrive in dark cars and wrap her in their heavy coats. They'd take her away from me. For those men, her age became like her armor. I hated those men for making her that way. One night, Clara got a phone call, about 10. The rain was pouring and the wind was slamming the shutters back and forth against the walls. I could barely make the conversation over the noise, but she was going to Monaco for the night. I didn't sleep that night. It was hot, humid. I paced my room, I smoked a bit. I had to get out, to breathe. I found myself outside her door, pushed it open. The inner sanctum, untouched, quiet, airy, the storm couldn't touch it.
My dad said, love makes a man. But look at me. I'm nothing. Because she's everything.
Freedom, she said. That was my blessing. She said that I was part of the luckiest generation ever because girls like me had knowledge, and knowledge is freedom. My mother made sure that I knew all truths before the world even began to speak to me. She made sure that I saw everything that there was to be seen, but there was just one thing that was mine. A small box that I kept beneath my bed for all the thoughts that hadn't been hers first. I would whisper secrets onto tiny pieces of paper and roll them into little balls. I'd blow them into a hole on the top of the box and I'd plug my hand over it, in case they ever escaped. But they did escape, right through the gaps where all the doors had been. Mother had found my box and took it to her friends. They tipped out all my secrets. The tiny paper balls scurried across the tabletop, searching for somewhere to hide, but there wasn't anywhere. Those bohemians with their red wine mouths laughed my secrets right out loud.
I found you slouched against the tombstone in the dark backyard of St. Barnabas. You were strong and silent, like 1,000 secrets stitched into skin. I slept between the crimson walls of the room you had given me and the smell of Iceland from the dim cloister below. You showed me freedom behind locked doors, freedom never seen and barely tasted. So there, in St. Barnabas, I made a new box of secrets. I piped them in and plugged them shut, a new colony of thoughts. And you never came to find them, and you never poured them out.
You found me lying on cold stone, sun just up, eyes wide open, where you had left me. Mother and her multicoloured strangers brought me back to this doorless house where she and they and all the world cried and held me tight. They called you a million names. They found 1,000 words for evil, 1,000 ways of telling this story of you. They took me back to St. Barnabas and they found my box and tipped out all my secrets. The tiny paper balls scurried across the tabletop, searching for somewhere to hide, but there wasn't anywhere. Those bohemians with their red wine mouths read my secrets out loud, but they stayed silent now. No one laughed. I was no longer funny, delicious, and odd.
You see, they fear the faith you've given me. They fear that I believe in you. They will take what is dark and they will push it into the light. To them, I'm the dirty teenage child of a bohemian. They say that this is the price you pay for too much freedom. No, the price has been paid. This is the only hope of redemption now.
I have been returned to this boundless house where laughing women break down doors and take what is not theirs, where women steal childhoods from their children to wear a youth that is not their own. There is always a price to be paid for what we take, to open doors that should be shut, to take what is not freely given. It is not choice, it is not freedom, it's violation. When you take, something must be lost. Something breaks and someone, somewhere, is left wanting.
July 7th, 2005. 10-second snapshot. A goofy young Asian guy's in front of me buying a chocolate bar. I'm in a pharmacy, King's Cross Station, London. This guy turns to me, he's short 10 pence, so I give it to him. It's early morning and I'm in a suit. I look down, I've got slick black shoes on. I walk out to the front of the station. It's summer, it's bright. I see the big white letter scroll across the top, and I bought the number 30 bus to Hackney Wick. This is all I have of that afternoon. Snapshots, shards, flickers, facts. Here are the facts. My name is Miles Cooper, and I've won everything I've ever touched. At 24, I was the most successful broker Merrill Lynch had ever seen. I was the glory boy at the trading floor, making more money than I knew what to do with. My dad was practically planning my biography before I was out of my teens. He always used to say to me, Miles, 15 to 50. I'm sure there's not a blank page. You're gonna hit the top, keep on going, boy. In April 2005, the DC office decided my skills were good enough to export, so I was going to London. Tick, 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 boom. I lent Sidney Hussein 10 pence to buy a chocolate bar 10 minutes before he boarded a bus to Hackney Wick and pressed detonate. He killed himself and 13 others that day. I, the one man on board, got out alive. I got some memory loss. Things became broken, fractured, so to speak. Everything from before the accident just had a hard time holding together. University College Hospital informed my family of my injuries, but assured them I would be returning stateside as soon as I was able. Merrill Lynch covered the costs, and I was due to fly back the following week. I think about Sidney Hussein a lot. They printed his photo in a newspaper a week after the accident. I carried it around in my pocket. He looked young, kind of dopey, he was lost. I remember his face when he asked me for that 10 pence. He smiled at me. Like, he didn't look like a murderer, he just looked like a kid that was happy to have 10 pence. And he bit into that chocolate bar like he knew that was the last chocolate bar he was going to eat. I'm glad I gave him that money. I owe him. The night of my flight, I stayed in Heathrow Airport in a coffee shop. I just sat there and watched the world walk past me. Everybody with heads in newspapers and music in their ears, eyes down, solitary, but always acting like someone was watching. All performing in tiny little music videos. I watched all these people, like a million little Charlies, all hunting for the golden ticket, all desperate to believe that the chocolate factory still exists. And then the sun rose, and I walked. I walked out of the departure lounge, out of Heathrow Airport. I walked onto a train, I walked out of Paddington Station, walked through the city of London. That was the day I walked away. Eventually I found myself in a tailor's. The guy asked me what kind of suit I wanted. I had no clue. I just said, suit like this one. I've got 3 suits like this one. I walk into a Starbucks. The guy asked what kind of coffee I wanted. I said, coffee. Yeah, what kind of coffee, he asked. I said, coffee. Coffee. I order a taxi, I order a hotel room. What room would you like? I don't know, I don't care, it doesn't matter. For the first 6 months following the explosion in Tavistock Square, I woke up at 6 a.m. every day. I ran for 2 hours, I showered, I dressed, I read the newspaper front to back, and I was ready to start my day. During that time, I stayed in 15 hotels. I consumed 160 grams of cocaine, and I drank nearly 2,000 units of alcohol. By December 31st, 2006, I was nearly dead.
Anyway, my routine was the chit sheet of life. I became the captain of my own ship and I could stay away from any icebergs that would threaten me to turn me into the London Titanic. I became what is supposed to be unsinkable, but not even captain doesn't always see the full force of the tsunami.
I lost my mother on a cold day in August, and soon after developed a stutter. I was an injured magician with no way of maintaining the illusion. The problem with having a stutter is it forces you to consider every word spoken. It starts as a feeling deep down and bubbles up and up, getting caught in your throat, causing you to choke on each word spoken. My fault.
I'm sorry. See? Everybody stopped, felt, focused. I was forced to deal with the shock coming off my ineptitude towards life. My routine was broken, and anytime I could feel the panic threatening my sanity, all I could do was sit in it and pray it will pass. I stopped going out after that. I stopped texting, stopped replying, stopped answering to my calls, quit my job. Anything that could trigger it, I avoided it. I only became reminiscent of one person. Mum, I'm not hiding anymore.
Even after years of practicing away my stutter, I still feel the meaning of every word that slashes its way through my mouth. A subtle reminder of the home I made for myself broken, buried at the bottom of the sea. I don't have routines anymore. I have medication, doctor's bills, and a therapist, and a job, and a new family. It's all a bit of a jigsaw now. None of the pieces seem to quite fit. But that's alright, because it's mine and I built it. Don't get me wrong, I still have panic attacks, but it's different now. When I get home, I go to sleep, and I have the dream again. And for a few hours, I feel safe. I feel happy. And then, if I want to, if I choose to, I do it all again.
That's not even snoring, is it? Listen, it's definitely more aggravating than breathing, but it doesn't quite have the conviction of a snore. No, just a slow dribble of air, as if it was engineered to be as aggravating as humanly possible. Sort of like a tiny pony having a tantrum. Having been with someone else, it's like I've left the room for the first time in years and come back in and realised this is the man that I once thought I might marry. It won't even occur to him I could have done what I have. There could be all three of us in this bed and I still don't think it would cross his mind. That much trust. Yesterday it made us strong, this morning it makes him weak. For once, I have him in my hands. 10 minutes time and he'll wait. And I make the call. I tell him, or I don't tell him. Let's say I tell him. He'll stare and breathe big heavy breaths, and then the anger will rise and it will seem like something might break him. And I will just sit in silence and I'll squeeze my eyes shut and I'll try not to hear him, because he might say some things that are true about the kind of person this makes me, and I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see what I could have done in his face. And then he'll make me look at him and I'll remember how he can be soft, and he'll try to make me understand, to make me feel what he's feeling, but I won't. I won't feel what he's feeling, because I haven't had anything taken from me. What we've lost, I gave it away, but he's had it stolen from him. But really Really what he'll feel is a sense of thievery, and everything that I thought was soft and feeling will have been his ego speaking. He'll want to know who the other man was, if I ever cared about him, and then he'll start to ask why. I've asked that question. I do remember how it feels. I remember being the unwitting victim, sleeping quietly and faithfully, and then it's said, or you just know, and then you're angry or more, desperate to stop the moment when you accept your insignificance, when you realise that you were not enough, so you try to defend it. Was she a better person than I was? And then you realise that you wouldn't be asking if the answer wasn't yes. Then, the visuals, you imagine them together. You imagine how happy she makes him, and you see his face in the moment that you are entirely forgotten, and you wonder whether during the hour that he's with her, if you ever crossed his mind and you know you didn't, and then you wonder whether during the past year and a half, if you ever crossed his mind and you know you didn't. But he was never entirely forgotten, no. He was in every thought, in every moment, in every drink that got me drunk enough to want to see what it might take to make me visible. It won't have been enough, though. Stay or go, tell him or I don't. Once you're invisible, there is no way left to win, no button left to push. You see, the first one to stop loving has it. Get left in the game, and you're trapped.
They're bound to judge, aren't they? Snoopy little paramedics. I mean, one art gallery, 2 queers, and 1 corpse. That's never going to look good, is it? It was our empire. Captain Admin and Sergeant Schmooze. It's all you need in the art world. A number cruncher, and someone to talk at 1,000,000 miles an hour. That's me. He was never in it for the art. We caught the wave of the YBAs, all that Hearst and Emin nonsense in the early 90s, with dingy Hoxton warehouses and precocious teenagers giving the establishment the 2 fingers like it has never been done before, as if this time it might just crumble at the sight of their ridiculous art and polysyllabic waffle.
And it's all thanks to the grand high witch of overpriced nonsense, Miss Tracy Emin. Now, Tracy dear, what you've done with this little bed piece is you've just not done your washing for a long while, and what's happened is you've come across looking like a bit of a grubby slut. So come along, pumpkin, pop yourself in the shower, let's get this tidied up. He really hated that Tracy Emin, and it took a lot for him to hate anyone. He said she looked selfish. I mentioned that maybe because we were standing in front of the 10-foot photo of her scooping money into her, well, you know. He said not. He said she had selfish eyes, that she was making tragedy a commodity, and that was unforgivable. You'd bloody love this, wouldn't you, Miss Tracy darling? World's most boring man recovers old birthday present from flamboyant boyfriend and hangs himself with it. One day I should flog it.
Something simple, get right to the core of it. Probably some of those embroidered stick figure things. $5 a piece for a game of hangman. He hated it. The drama, the hype. He tried not to. He read everything there was to read on the subject. He genuinely believed that if people were paying all this money, there must be something that he wasn't seeing. Bless him. He always tried to find the good in things. Invariably, it wasn't there. You see, it was never his world. It was mine. And I loved it. The parties, the glam, the feeling you were getting away with it. Free food, free booze, free drugs, people knowing your name, recognition. It's short on the ground. You get it where you can, but he never needed it. Not like me. I'd be raving in my day glow, and he'd have a pint and go home early. Boring guy. Didn't like the noise. It was the same at openings, print fairs, biennials. He'd lurk. He'd actually look at the art. Whilst I schmoozed, made us contacts, did deals. It's who you know, not what you know. Always has been, always will be.
He never understood that. He thought that things should succeed on their own merit. Not anymore, love. He never used his gayness either, and gayness is a pretty serious ammunition in the art world. It's an indisputable qualification. Gay men do aesthetics like black men can sprint. It's just fact. But he didn't have very much gay in him. What I mean is, he was the least gay I've ever met. Well, excepting this most recent episode, which, if he doesn't mind me saying, is somewhat queenie. He drank Stella, hated gyms, never wore a pair of matching socks in his life. Practically heterosexual. It was his niche.
I was the yin to his yang, the Vivienne Westwood to his Marks and Spencers, the Satropas to his Bonjour Regis. He needed me, because I made him sure of who he was, by constantly reminding him of who he will never be, of who he will never want to be. He was safe and sound on his patch, the only straight gay in the village. But then, about 2 years ago, everything changed. In came the queers that aren't queer, and he hated them, and all that acceptance. I mean, how was he meant to tell himself apart? You've never seen a man so lost. He'd been sucked in, invaded by normal. Finally, Emmon's getting old. That's where I was before this. I was at the National Gallery. 20-year retrospectives start to show their wrinkles, love. Get a bit of distance on it and it looks even more like rubbish than it did in the first place.
If only he could have seen that. If he could have stepped outside of it all for long enough, got out of this place, got away from me, he would have seen that this world of overpriced nonsense wouldn't win. I guess he couldn't have seen how it could have been any other way. The faithlessness got to him, ate away from the inside.
I could see it happening. I watched him silently shatter beneath it all, sitting on the couch, eating himself into oblivion. There's more macaroni cheese in that corpse than I can bear to think about. But I didn't do anything. I told myself that deep down he knew, that he could see that this world that I brought him into, this shallow, shameless world of people with millions, pandering to the tantrums of teenagers like Emmon, of queers desperately trying to stay queer. I thought he could see it for what it was. See me for what I was. A joke. But no, he thought we wanted more. He thought that I wanted to be scrabbling around in the dirt for the last bits of difference that I had left, and he didn't want to see that. If we could have both laughed at it from the sidelines, fine. But he thought I hadn't seen. He thought all of this was me.
But what if I stepped down? If I stopped pretending? I couldn't carry him. I tried to get him down, lift him from the knees. I did. I had him in my arms. I took his weight for a second, but he was too heavy. So I had to let go. Let the Hermes take the strain. I watched his bloated, purple head loll forward. There was a shock factor. The first one I'd felt in a decade. And so perhaps this was his parting gift? To remind me of what it was like when people stared. The thrill of shocking. To remind me of what it was like when we were something to look at. So this is it. The final fling for the queers at the fringes, the underground fairies, a little souvenir of when difference existed. And he thought this is what I wanted? What I missed? I would have given up the drama the day I met him, in all his beige glory. I've been pushing the sodding envelope for half a decade. I just never thought to tell him. I thought he knew I was playing make-believe, but he didn't. I never thought to tell him that he was home.
Early in the new year, I started getting low on funds. So I returned to Merrill Lynch, explained to them that the accident had caused my absence, and necessitated my resignation. As I'd hoped, I received a handsome golden handshake. I spoke to my old manager, Billy Driscoll, up on the 15th floor. You know they're worried about you, Miles. Yes, sir. I have responsibility to tell them where you are. Yes, sir. You know they think you're dead, Miles. Yes, sir. He didn't ring them. I don't know why. Maybe thought they were better off without me. Would have been the first thing Billy Driscoll and I ever agreed on. And so that was it. I was dead. A year and a half after the accident, and I had finally died. If I was dead, it meant I could stop running. If I was dead, it meant I was free. Free of the suit, free of the wedding band, free of fatherhood. I could do whatever I wanted, guilt-free. After all, you can't blame a guy for dying. I felt like the elect, like I'd been given a second bite of the cherry. I spent the next 3 months feeling and acting like a superhero, with a Simi Hussein, death as my benefactors. I was loaded and liberated. I looked right, I talked right, I was the all-star once again. This time, without any of the weight. I ate a lot, I drank a lot, I spent a lot. Berlin, Tokyo, Paris, Milan. I ate the best food, I drank the best wine, I stayed in the best hotels, and people loved me for it. People chose to be around me, men marvelled at me, and women wanted me. Now they couldn't actually have me because there was nothing to have, but they didn't know that. To them, my inaccessibility was a mark of quality. People always want what they can't have, and women will always love you for that. Did I feel guilty? Did I feel guilty for the life I was leading? No. The actions of Simi Hussein on July 7th, 2005 had made one thing very clear to me. My existence was incidental. I had stayed alive because it had taken some time to take the fare out of my pocket. I had stayed alive because I decided to sit at the front of the bus and not the back. I stayed alive because, having paid for this chocolate bar, I assumed a Sydney Hussein would want to make conversation, and quite frankly, I wasn't in the mood. I stayed alive because I'm an antisocial prick. I am alive by chance, and chance alone. Now, ask me if I feel guilty. You showed me the point of right and wrong, when the difference between dead and alive is that tiny. What? You think I'm scared of not going to heaven, huh? Here's your mine. Oh, and the payback. Now, the justice for walking away, there is none. If you choose to walk away and you keep on walking, if you stay dead, it all just disappears. Conscience, guilt, as long as you don't look back. Oh, but eventually you'll wonder. You wonder when it happened. On what day it became impossible for you to pick up a phone. On what day it was it became irreparable. And when you wonder, you'll wonder yourself into the realization that life has trapped you and you would kill for someone to give you a way out, for someone to do something that justifies your behaviour. As I said, think about Sydney Hussein a lot. Here are the facts. My name is Miles Cooper, born 1982, and I have watched everything I've ever touched. My father always used to say to me, Miles, 15 to 50, make sure there's not a blank page. Hit the top and keep on going, boy. On July 7th, 2005, I lent a Sydney Hussein 10 pence to buy a chocolate bar 10 minutes before he boarded a bus to Hackney Wick and pressed detonate. I'm returning home for my daughter's 3rd birthday. She'll be happy to see me. Easy as pie.
People talk about guilt as if it's an instinct.
I have had the same dream for the past 3 months.
I have to say, this wasn't the ending I had in mind.
This is the house that my mother built.
This time last summer, Dad sent me to the south of France.
Taxi dropped me off Boulevard Victor Hugo.
Oh, that bloody scarf.
Mum used to work for one of them Ponzi magazines.
I was sort of keen on going down to the gym after school.
When I was 7 years old, my mother took me on an aeroplane for the first time.
What do you do in a world where anything is possible? Often a little pain and suffering grows happiness and freedom.
Lessons that were not deserved give new purpose, new direction, new meaning to life.
For it's only when things get tough that we work out what really matters.